Today's song is Live Like That by Sidewalk Prophets. The title track of their second album, it's one of their biggest hits, and its music video has over 3 million views on YouTube. Lead singer and co-writer of the song, David Frey, explains how the lyrics are based on the passage in Hebrews 12, where it talks about how we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, the many heroes of the faith listed in the previous chapter. As there have been so many examples of ways to live rightly and in a way that glorifies and pleases God, let's learn from them, follow their lead, and live like that. Let's ignore the fact that they rhyme me with king and talk about the content. They borrow from scripture for a lot of this song, referencing passages about reflecting Christ to the world. Christians are described as ambassadors, representing the divine. We're also told to use our words and actions to exemplify how a believer should be. The song starts out asking questions about legacy and impact. What will we leave behind us after we die? Are we Christians only in word but not in deed? In the song, they suggest that the best way to live is to let everything we say and do point to God. Ultimately, the song reminds us to, in our daily lives, ask the question, what would Jesus do? We should live our lives in such a manner that anything good or uplifting that we bring to the world should point back to God. It's a good reminder for all believers to walk worthy of God. There are, however, some questionable areas in the song. I'll look at two specific spots and one general. The first specific questionable area is at the beginning of the second verse, where they say, "Am I proof that you are who you say you are, that grace can really change a heart?" These lines are reminiscent of the quote, "You are the only Bible some unbelievers will ever read." In a way, this is true. We went through the verses about being an example and an ambassador. But are we proof that Christ is who he says he is? He says he's the Messiah. He says he existed before time. He's the creator of all things. As Christians, we reflect him, but we certainly don't prove him. He is his own proof, having died and rose again. Yes, they will know we follow him by how we act, but they can only truly know his love and grace by coming to him and experiencing it for themselves. We are lumps of clay being molded into the perfect image of Christ. While we reflect him, we should also be pointing people to him and not relying on our own examples to convince people. That leads nicely to the second questionable part, where in the first verse and chorus, phrases like, "Was I love?" "Was I Jesus?" and "If love is who I am," are used. Now, I understand that these are poetic uses of these terms, as we are not really love or Jesus. God is love, and Jesus is Jesus. Christ did describe us as the light of the world, and later went on to describe himself in the same manner. Not to say we are the same, but just that we are to shine the love of God into the hearts of sinners, just like he did. So, I understand what the lines are saying, but we are to be like God. We are to act like Christ, not actually be them. We should never take that position, because if someone's faith is dependent on how we act, they are on shaky ground. Their anchor should be Christ and him alone, as he did all the saving work himself. The Bible verse seemingly being referenced in this particular line is in Matthew. When Jesus says to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and visit the sick, he says that it will be as if we did it to him, not that we would be him doing it to the least of us. So I think this may just be an uncareful way of encouraging people to be like Jesus. But what exactly does it mean to be like Jesus? This brings us to the third and general questionable idea throughout the song. In Frey's breakdown of the song, he says that ultimately, it's Christ's example that we are trying to emulate. As said before, what would Jesus do? Well, the answer to that question may surprise some people. Yes, Jesus healed the sick, reached out to the societal outcasts, and showed mercy on those that the world would have condemned. but he also showed righteous anger, convicted people of their sin, and he exposed hypocrisy with the harshest of language. If Christ is our highest example, then we are to preach the gospel, proclaiming the many sins we see normalized around us to be an offense to God and will be punished by Him. The only way of escape is through Christ and His atoning death on the cross. This is the message that Christ preached and lived. If we are truly to be as Christ was, we need to do and say all He did and said, not just the things that make people feel good. Sometimes the truth hurts, and in the case of the gospel, it is offensive to many people and foolish to others. But if we're going to love our neighbor, we have to tell them that their sin has separated them from God, and only Christ can restore them. This is just as loving as supporting their physical needs, since it's concerning their spiritual well-being. Christ showed us throughout His life the importance of doing both. Let's live like that. Finally, the uniqueness score. As the bridge is much smaller than the verses, I'm going to give it half the value of a full stanza. Plugging in the numbers, comparing the ratio of unique words with the ratio of unique stanzas, the uniqueness score comes out to 45%, which is an average score. So, Sidewalk Prophets live like that. A reminder to live like Christ while not exactly fleshing out what that means. Are they just lyrics? Decide for yourself, and let me know in the comments.